See if that's gonna work. Sorry. Because um I moved the teaching next tag. I should take notes. I moved the thing up last night to show you the share pictures at the end of the show. So I just got back kind of late from the doctor, and then I went to the thrift after to get some to see if they had more games for tomorrow, which I got. So so that's good. So um over $900, probably closer to like a grand for the drive. And I don't think I I don't think I'm gonna ah, I don't think I'm gonna sorry, I didn't realize like I grabbed this water bottle. I'm gonna have to try with this hand, but then can I hold it with my feet? That's that's the method. Hold on. Is that gonna be? I had to take a shot. I didn't take a yeah, you're gonna need to be lower. Yeah, I couldn't. Oh, that's too low. What still? What are you doing still? I didn't have time or ability to put pantyhose or undies on or anything. So look at when you don't have a when you d- when you don't have the pause, huh? You got the foot grip strength. Nice. Okay, so then I find out. So why is it so expensive with the drive? Because it's not what I thought. It's not what I thought it was actually. It's it's remember when my Mac got the water. This was years ago. The water. And so the thing is, it was already. I can stop this. It was it was already. Um, my foot smells like flowers. What is my body? What? Sorry. Oh, my. Okay, we're good. We're good. Sorry. Light count. Um. Okay. So I already spent over $300 to um recover that from the. God, does this shit weaken you? The first time, okay. So when this disc dropped, I thought it was the. Thought it was the there's videos and I no 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 don't- I don't ah I don't know if there's anything on it worth saving that's over that's worth over 900 dollars. I don't know if I don't know if I said that the reason that that it's expensive is because it's a man. because it's a it was the it was the entire it's the it's so it's it's so stressful to think about. Oh, I have to so because oh man, because it was a whole computer. So when they got the files, instead of it being video files, it's a whole it said my my Mac the name of the files. So it's and it's a lot of duplicates, a lot of bullshit. But because it's so big, they have to use the machinery longer, which apparently is what makes it cost like almost a fucking $1,000, and it's not worth it. It's not. I can try to negotiate them, right? I can try tomorrow because they gave me a very, very limited window and I couldn't talk today when they said I couldn't. Fuck, I had to go to the doctor today, and I don't think, and I don't think there's anything. I don't think there's anything on that drive necessarily. Man, 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 man. There might be something that if I look back, I could say, I really, really would wish I saved that, but I don't know. And I don't get to look at it until I have it. And I don't get to have it till I pay $1,000. I may be able to have them send it back to me, not cost as much, and still, I don't know if it'll be recoverable at a future point. I don't fucking know. So anyway, yeah, I told my doctor I wanted to kill myself. I told her like, you know, how I'm scared. Um, blah, 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 blah. I'm scared what's gonna God, I fucking hate this. Can something please get better, please? It's real. Sorry. Oh god. Okay. 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 I don't have any ice. I can't make ice. I can't make iced coffee. Although I put put a put a I put an ice maker on my list, and I think John bought it for me, so I should be getting one. That's good. But for the time being, I have water because I need something because my all the crying, my voice has not been great, and I really want to. I'm sorry, man. I really want to read to you tonight, so At least I have water. Uh, what else? Um, got the TV today. Thank you, John. I haven't gotten a chance to set it up, because my hand's broken. I gotta be careful when I'm shaking, and all that. Um, I don't think the hell's going. Oh God. Okay, let me get my sorry. Well, I don't know, but 1 second. What? Whoa, okay, I'm just gonna. You have more water coming. I still, I still have cases of water. I haven't. I sorry. I haven't. I don't have any. I don't have any underwear on, so I have to straight up not get banned tonight. So I can get up a little bit. Sorry. Sorry. All right, give me a Okay. Okay, give me I don't know what the I is that what you wanted to see what Brian wrote? S- What is your disease? Have I if I may ask? I don't know if sorry to hold. So, I don't have a disease. How have I had I've had sorry. I've been through a lot of emotional trauma, extreme and right now, with what's happened, with what's happened. I don't like to say the words of what's happened since Christmas that I've been dealing with, but I have that weighing on me really badly, and it brings up pain, right? So when you add ah, when I'm not suffering so greatly, I can be a little bit better. I wasn't always this way. Um, I'm struggling to think right now about what to do about the drive, the money, and all these things, and also it's like it. So it's overwhelming, and my brain is already kind of going through too much with everything. So um, it makes it hard to talk. And also because it's because I want to so bad, and I actually I think it makes it harder to talk. The fact that I really want to. So. So ideally, I will begin reading, and ideally, I will relax a little into the book, and I'll probably feel bad because I won't be at my best because my voice from all the crying lately. But I would really like to read the book. So this book, I'm gonna take off the dust jacket. Huh. So it's actually This just begins it's by saying "for you," what you might notice is the the title of this video. And then it begins hot because I was looking for a chapter name to title this video instead. Didn't have one because it just says chapter one, so I thought maybe the first word of the chapter. And it says, "You are about to begin reading a new book." So I thought, well, there you go. I really should title this book "For You." So, for you, let's begin. I know a lot of you are concerned about me with the fire. I'm not anywhere near the fire, which is um quite a blessing. I haven't been uh following that too much, but I'm aware that there are quite widespread fires in California right now. I'm in the desert, so none haven't reached me. Okay, okay, pull you guys up. Okay, guys. Okay, so this should be fun. New book. Just having a sip of water. Okay. You are about to begin reading a new book. And to be honest, you are a little tense. Ha! A little. The beginning of a novel is like a first date. I don't know too much about that. You hope that from the first lines, an urgent magic will take hold, and you will sink into the story like a hot bath, giving yourself over entirely. But this hope is tempered by the expectation that in reality, you're about to have to learn a bunch of people's names and follow along politely like you are attending the baby shower of a woman you hardly know. And that's fine. Goodness knows you've fallen in love with books that didn't grab you in the first paragraph, but that doesn't stop you from wishing they would, from wishing they would come right up to you in the dark of your mind and kiss you on the throat. Margot's baby shower was hosted by the owner of the restaurant where she worked. Oh, thank you, Jerry. What is I get a trophy. Hey, Dwight. Oh, uh, okay, so Margot's baby shower was hosted by the owner of the restaurant where she worked, Tessa, who thought it would be funny if the cake was shaped like a big dick. Maybe because Margot wasn't married, was 19, and couldn't even drink, or because it was her professor who knocked her up. Tessa was an accomplished baker. She made all the restaurant's desserts herself and went all out on the penis cake, a hand carved 3D phallus, 12 layers of sponge swirled in matte pink icing. I feel like you can tell right from the beginning this book is going to be a bit adult. uh, um, mm. Okay. She installed a hand pump, and after they sang, "For she's gonna have a huge baby," to the tune of "For he's a jolly good fellow," after Margot blew out the candles. Why? It wasn't her birthday. Tessa gave the pump a sharp squeeze, and white pudding spurted out of the top and dribbled down the sides. See, that's just creative. Tessa whooped with glee. Margot pretended to laugh and later cried in the bathroom. Margot knew Tessa had made the cake because she loved her. Tessa was both a mean and loving person. Once, when Tessa found out the salad boy had no sense of taste or smell because he'd almost been beaten to death in his teens, she served him a plate of shaving cream and potted soil, telling him it was a new dessert. He ate two bites before she stopped him. That's really mean. Margot knew Tessa was trying to make light of a situation that was not happy. Turning tragedy into carnival was kind of her thing, but it seemed unfair that the only love available to Margot was so inadequate and painful. Margot's mom, Cheyenne, had told Margot that she should have an abortion. Her professor had been hysterical for Margot to have an abortion. In fact, she wasn't sure she wanted the baby so much as she wanted to prove to them both that they could not bend her conveniently to their will. It had never occurred to her that if she took this position, They might simply interact with her less, or in the case of the professor, stop interacting with her altogether. Well, Cheyenne eventually accepted Margot's decision and even attempted to be supportive. The support itself wasn't always helpful. When Margot went into labor, her mom showed up to the hospital 4 hours late because she'd been driving all around town looking for a good teddy bear. You're not going to believe this, Margot, but I wound up going back to Bloomingdale's because it had the best one. Cheyenne worked at Bloomingdale's and had for almost 15 years. The way her legs looked in sheer black pantyhose. See, now we know. Now, now we know we picked the right book, huh? Mm. Ooh. The way her legs look in sheer black pantyhose was one of Margot's earliest memories. I bet a lot of y'all like the Bloomingdales. Oh, Cheyenne held out the bear, which was white with a slightly constipated face. She did a high, squeaky voice. Push that little baby out. I want to meet my friend. Cheyenne was wearing so much perfume. Margot was almost glad when she went to sit in the corner and started playing competitive poker games on her phone, Poker Stars. That was her jam. She chewed gum and played poker all night long, stomping those jokers. That was what Cheyenne always called them, the other players, jokers. There was a nurse who was rude and made fun of Margot's name choice. Margot named the baby Bodhi, like Bodhisattva, which even her mom thought was stupid. But Cheyenne slapped that nurse right across the jaw, and it caused a whole kerfuffle. It was also the time Margot felt most loved by her mother, and for many years to come, she would replay the memory of that slap and the perfect look of surprise on the nurse's face. Yeah, I don't think you ever forget the moments when, like, your mama stands up for you. Um, I had this teacher in Florida called Mr. Hall, and he called me stupid. Well, he said that he can't get away legally with calling kids stupid, so he calls them silly. So in the middle of class, he would call me silly, like, because my homework wouldn't be like typed out and stuff because I didn't have. Not only did I not have a computer at home, but I didn't have lights on, I didn't have electricity, and I didn't have food. But he would embarrass me in front of everyone and be like, "Oh yeah, here's silly Stella, just silly to type out her homework," and I would write it out by hand. Anyway, um, when I dropped out to make myself homeschooled and got a job at Target during the day, she you have to go with your parent has to agree for you to be able to drop out. And my mom stood up at the I don't know what if it's the principal where it's supposed to go, but I remember the room had a lot of wood in it, like dark color wood. And she got up and she said, "Your teacher called my daughter stupid." And she was so upset. Just like, how dare you in this school? And she's like, "Come on, Stella, let's go." And I was like, wow, my God, because she didn't even want me to at first. Um, she never said it to me about it, but I always have that memory um of her standing up for me saying that, like, wow. And so this mom slapped that nurse, and I bet she'll never forget that because I feel like it shows you that they care, even though they sometimes it's awkward to say it. But that was after the epidural and the whole night of being rabid dog thirsty, begging for ice chips and being given a yellow sponge to suck on. Sponges being well known for their ability to quench thirst. What the fuck? Margot said. around the sponge in her mouth, which tasted of lemons. It was after all the pushing and pooping on the table, and her OB looking so disgusted as he wiped it away, and Margot shouting, "Come on, you've seen it all before," and him laughing, you're right, I have, Mama. Now let's have one more big push. And then the magic of Bodhi's slippery purple body when they put him on her chest, pressing the towels around him, his eyes pinched shut. She was instantly worried about the scrawniness of him. His legs, in particular, seemed underdeveloped in a tadpole kind of way. He was only 6 pounds, despite the song they had sung to her at work, and she loved him. She loved him so much it made her ears ring. It was only when they released her from the hospital that Margot began to panic. Cheyenne had already missed one shift to be there for the birth. There was no way she could take another day to help Margot home from the hospital. Besides, Cheyenne was technically banned from entering the hospital after slapping that nurse. Margot told her mom that, of course, she would be fine, but driving out of the parking lot, her baby squalling in the hard plastic cage of his car seat. Oopsies, oopsies. Sounds like a burnout teacher. I actually saw him at the Target. I had to ring him up. It was so embarrassing. No, but you know what though? He had to give the scores for the FCATs because this was when I had moved to Florida, right? And I had one of the highest scores in the school for the FCAT. And that's because I was trained on the MCATs in Massachusetts, which is like the hardest. It was really, really hard. And so you're constantly are studying this for the standardized test. So I was being prepped for that one like my whole life since I was in like, elementary school for the MCAT. So the FCAT was a lot easier. And so then when he gave me my score, he said, "Wow, you're really an underachiever, aren't you?" Anyway, loser Daryl Hall, you're a fucking loser. Sorry, that was his name. Anyway, doesn't matter now, I guess. Uh, okay. So she's got him in his car seat. Margot felt like she was robbing a bank. I always thought that must feel so weird when you're taking the baby home. Like, are we allowed to just take this thing home? His cries were so mucusy and frail, they made her heart race. And she was shaking the whole 45-minute drive to her place. She parked on the street because their apartment came with only one designated spot. But when she went to take Bodhi out from the back, she found she couldn't understand how the lever that released the car seat from the base worked. She was pressing the button. Was there a second button she was supposed to push simultaneously? She began jittering the car seat, careful not to shake it too hard. If there was one thing everyone had been clear about, it was never to shake the baby. Well, those car seats are probably like really hard until you're on like your second or third baby. Bodhi was crying frantically now. She kept thinking, "You do not have the calories to expend this much energy. You're going to die before I even get you upstairs." After 5 minutes of straight panicking, she finally remembered she could just unfasten him. And after fumbling with the freakishly gigantic plastic clasp that went over his chest and pressing the stupid red button of the crotch buckle with the requisite superhuman strength, seriously, she pictured a family of rock climbers used to hanging by their fingertips off cliff sides who then decided to design baby stuff. She freed him, but then she had no idea how she was supposed to carry this tiny, fragile thing and also all her bags. Already, the stitches in her downstairs hurt like crazy. Oh my god, her downstairs. Mm. Ugh. And she regretted deeply the vanity that made her pack jeans to wear home from the hospital, though let the record show that they did fit. Okay, she said seriously to Bodhi's tiny body, his face red purple, his eyes shut tight. Now don't move. She set him down on the front. Oh, thank you, Jerry. Oh, you matter to me too. She set him down on the front passenger seat so she could slip the straps of the diaper bag and her overnight bag over her shoulders, crossed over her tits like bandoliers. Then she snatched up the tiny baby and waddled up the street to the slump brown buildings of Park Place. They weren't exactly bad apartments, but tucked away behind it, the excitingly named Fuel Up gas station, but compared to the cheerful, whimsically bright 1940s homes that line the rest of the street, Park Place looked like an uninvited guest. As she climbed the outside stairs to the second level, she was terrified she would spontaneously drop the baby. His little form, like a Cornish game hen, spiraling downward toward the leaf choked communal swimming pool. Margot went inside, said hi to her roommate on the couch, the nicest one, Susie, who loved LARPing and sometimes dressed as an elf, even on a random weekday. By the time she made it to her room, closed the door, shucked off her bags, and sat down on her bed to nurse Bodhi, Margot felt like she'd been to war. I did not mean to insult people who've actually been to war. I only mean that this level of stress and physical hardship was entirely outside Margot's previous experience. She kept thinking as she nursed him, I am so fucked. I am so fucked. I am so fucked. Because all around her, she could feel the echoey space of no one caring about her or worrying about her or helping her. She might as well have been nursing this baby on an abandoned space station. And that's how I wonder how my mom felt about, me and my sisters, like especially, yeah, like, but then I think the closeness of having your baby, that you don't feel completely alone because you have your baby, you know? Oh, thank you, Darth. Congratulations, Robert. Woo woo. Thank you so much. Mhm, mhm. Okay. Plus, I think the act of the breastfeeding, you actually feel closer even to the baby because you're literally still giving it life and feeding it. And did you know that a breastfeeding mother actually needs to eat more calories than a pregnant mother? Um, that's yeah, little known fact, I guess. I just learned that recently. So they need to eat, maybe eaten for two at least. Oh, wow. Um, She held the perfect purse of his warm body and looked into his pinched little face, the tiny cobes of his nostrils mysteriously beautiful and fluted. She'd read that baby's eyes could focus on things only about 18 inches away, which was exactly how far away their mothers' faces were when they nursed. And he was looking at her now. What did he see? She felt bad if he was seeing her cry. When he fell asleep, she did not put him in the crib like she was supposed to. She lay down next to him in her bed, aware that the battery of her consciousness was running out. She was afraid to fall asleep when She was the lone sole guardian of this tiny being, but her body was not giving her a choice. I learned about the terms first person, third person, and second person in high school, and I thought that was all there was to point of view until I met Bodhi's father in the fall of 2017. The course Mark taught was about was about impossible or unlikely points of view. I remember one day a kid in class named Derek kept trying to Psych 101 diagnose the protagonist of this novella, and Mark kept saying the main character is not a real person. But in this book, he's a real person, Derek had said. Yes, insofar as he's not presented as a cat or a robot, Mark said. So I'm just saying in the book, I think he has borderline personality disorder. This is not an interesting way to read the book. Maybe to you, Derek said, but I find it interesting. He was wearing a black beanie, and you could tell his hair was dirty underneath, lank and soft, the fur of a sick cat. He was the kind of boy who was never romantically interested in me, and whom I therefore spent little time thinking about. He probably watched a lot of foreign films. But the character would not be interesting if he were a real person, Mark said. You would never want to know someone like this. You would never become their friend. They are only interesting because they aren't real. The fakeness is where the interest lies. In fact, I would go so far as to say that all things that are genuinely interesting aren't quite real. What the hell does that mean? Stupid. Real things are boring and unreal things are interesting. Got it? Derek said. Derek, you dumb. I could see only the back of his head, but he sounded like he was rolling his eyes, which was brazen even for him. The point is, Mark said, and now you got to keep in mind, Mark is her teacher, professor, who is also the father of Bodhi, the baby boy. Okay. The point is, Mark said, the narrator doesn't do X or Y because he has borderline personality disorder. He does X or Y because the author is making him. You aren't trying to have a relationship with the character. You are trying to have a relationship with the author through the character. Okay, Derek said. Now that sounds less stupid. All right, Mark said. I will settle for less stupid. And then everyone laughed like now we were all good friends. I did not say a word in that class. I did not speak in any of my classes. It honestly never even occurred to me that I should. Teachers always claim part of your grade was participation. I learned long ago this was a bluff. I had no idea why anyone would choose to speak in a class, but there would always be one or two who jabbered the whole time like the professor was a late night host and they were some well loved celebrity come to promote the movie of their own intelligence. But the day he handed back our first papers, Mark asked me to stay after class. What are you doing here? He asked. Oh, I'm enrolled, I said. No, he said, this paper. I saw now he was holding my essay in his hands. I could see it had an A written on it in red pen, but I pretended to be worried. I'm not sure why. Was the paper not good? No, the paper was excellent. I'm asking, why are you at Fullerton Junior College? You could go anywhere. What? I said, laughing. Like Harvard? Yes, like Harvard. I don't think they let you into Harvard for writing a good English paper. That is exactly why they let you into Harvard. Oh, I said. Would you like to get coffee sometime? He asked. We can talk more about this. Yes, I said. I had no idea yet that he was interested in me. It didn't occur to me at all. He was married, he wore a ring, he was in his late 30s, old enough that I didn't think of him in that way. But even if I'd known his intentions, I still would have wanted to go for that coffee. He was my professor, and for some reason, this mysterious title made him slightly non human. In the beginning, it was hard to imagine that I might hurt his feelings or affect him in any way. I did not make moral judgments about him either. I accepted him as he was, as though he had earned the right to be dorky and odd and adulterous by being better and smarter than other people, better and smarter than me. Mark seemed as whimsical and mysteriously useless as the city of Fullerton itself. Fullerton wasn't really any richer than where I'd grown up in Downey, though it had a completely different vibe because of the colleges. Cal State Fullerton and its little sister Fullerton College. In Downey, you could eat overpriced seafood in a dark restaurant, pulsing with techno, or wait in line for an hour to eat Instagram worthy sweet rolls from Porto's. Fullerton, by contrast, was like an entire town run by maiden aunts. It had so many dentists and tax advisors, you'd think people did little else. Even the frat houses seemed quaint and harmless. Shaded by mature elms, Fullerton's money didn't come from industry. It came from its connection to learning. The college's reason enough to keep the rents high and dollars flowing. Mark was part of all that. He was a wind chime in human form, dangling dorkily from the glorious tree of higher education. In the beginning, this made me feel like the power dynamic was in my favor. His professorness didn't blind me to his foibles. I registered fully the ridiculousness of his pants, green corduroy, his shoes, Birkenstocks, the thumbed through copy of Beowulf peeking out of his messenger bag, but it was almost like I was a character in a book to him. He couldn't get over it. The Kermit tattooed on my hip. Why Kermit? He asked, the first time we slept together, rubbing Kermit's little green body with his fingertip. I shrugged. I wanted to get a tattoo. Everything else was like knives or snakes or serious things. And I'm just not a serious person. What kind of person are you? I thought about it. A cheesy person. Cheesy, he barked. Yeah, cheesy, I said. What, like I believed in Santa until I was 12? I don't know, I'm cheesy. You are the most singular person I have ever met, he said wonderingly. It was part of why I avoided ever telling him about my father. There are people who venerate professional wrestling and people who look down on professional wrestling. And I worried Mark would be the kind to venerate the thing he looked down upon. I knew my carny ass bloodline would be an instant fetish for him. The faker things seem, the more intrigued we are by them. That was what Mark loved about Point of View. The ways it was obviously fake or so try hard to be real, which was weirdly another way of showing how fake it was. The way you look at something changes what you see, he said. It's true that writing in third person helps me. It's so much easier to have sympathy for the Marga who existed back then rather than to try to explain how and why I did all the things that I did. The thing about Bodhi's dad that was so confusing was that, of course, I only slept with him because he had the power. Of course, it was the fact that he was my English professor, my favorite class. And yet, so much of what compelled me was the way he kept insisting that I had the power, which one of us actually had it, though. I used to spend a lot of time thinking about this. Aside from impregnating me and kind of ruining my life, Mark helped me a great deal with my writing. He went over every sentence of my papers with me, touching on each one and how it could be better. He would give me A's and then demand I rewrite the papers anyway. What you are, he said, is too important not to polish. He would point out a sentence I had written, demanding, "What are you trying to say here?" And I would tell him, stuttering, what I had intended. And he would say, "Just say that. Don't pussyfoot around." It was only after he'd been helping me this way for several weeks that the affair started. One day I was supposed to go to his office. When I got there, he said he couldn't focus and could we meet another day? And I said, sure. But then we wound up leaving the building at the same time, and that turned into going on a walk together. And he vented about everything, all his frustrations about the department and his wife and his kids, and how trapped he felt by his life. And I don't even deserve my shitty life, he said. I'm a horrible person. You are not, I said. You're an amazing teacher. You spent all this time with me helping me, every second of which I was desperately wanting to kiss you. I did not know what to say to that. I mean, in a way, I had schoolgirlish crush on him, but I never thought about kissing him. I just felt glowy and good whenever he praised me. It was raining and we had been walking in circles around campus. We didn't have umbrellas, but we were both wearing jackets with hoods. We'd stopped underneath a huge eucalyptus tree. Can I kiss you? He asked. I nodded. I mean, I literally could not have imagined saying no. Well, why don't you imagine that he has a wife, Margot? That's easy. Why don't you say, no, you have a wife? I would have done anything he asked. He was short, maybe 5'5", my height, and I had never kissed a boy that short before. Isn't 5'5" like average? And it was kind of nice with both of our hoods up in the rain, but even I was like, we're kissing openly on campus. This seems like a very bad idea. The thing was, by the time everything was over between us, he had behaved so childishly, and I'd had to assume so much of the responsibility for what we'd done. Well, I mean, yeah, you do have some that I didn't feel taken advantage of. I felt pissed off. If he had actually been a grown up, the whole thing never would have happened in the first place. The first time Mark came to Margot's apartment, he wore a baseball cap and sunglasses, like he was trying to dodge the paparazzi. Margot had not attempted to clean or pick up for this visit, did not feel embarrassed about Mark seeing the stained pink velvet sofa, the mess of cords hanging from the TV, her own frameless bed, a mattress and box spring on the floor. None of this troubled her. He was here to fuck a 19-year-old. What could he possibly expect? You have roommates, was what he said. I told you I had roommates, she said. I didn't think they'd be home. Is that beer? Susie asked. Mark was indeed clutching a six-pack of beer in oddly medicinal looking bottles, red stripe. It was a kind of beer Margot had never seen in her life. Certainly, they didn't stock it at her work. He was still wearing his sunglasses indoors. Take those off, Margot said, and tried to pluck them off his face. He swatted her away. They're prescription. Pay the toll, Susie said, and held up her hand to receive a beer. What? Give her a beer, Margot said, laughing at him. He was holding the bottles to his chest like a child who didn't want to share. How old are you? He asked Susie. Jesus, Margot, I didn't mean to. Old enough to tell the dean. Now pay the troll, Susie growled. Oh, pay the troll. Like the the bridge troll. I couldn't think of the word bridge. Yeah. Okay. Uh, "Mm, this was such a mistake," Mark said. "Here," Margot said, and slipped a beer out of the six pack and into Susie's waiting hand. "The troll is very pleased," Susie said. "Let's go to my room," Margot said. Mark followed her down the hall, past her other roommates, Kat, the larger's, and Kat, the smaller's rooms, to her door. "Welcome," she said, holding the door open for him, "to the place where the magic happens." Even though she was not really attracted to Mark, the sex was surprisingly pleasant. She'd had sex with two other boys before. One, her high school boyfriend, Sebastian, who had absolutely the best dog, a shepherd mix named Remy, whose head smelled vaguely of peanuts, and whom she definitely loved more than Sebastian. And the other, a boy she'd met at orientation the first week of college, who never spoke to her again. There were girls in my oh my god, hi Terry. I didn't want to say anything about what you were going through today, so nobody knows. But if you want to share, I mean, I just want to say, like, we love you. Sorry. Okay. Oh, I remember in my school, you guys know I never had a boyfriend in high school, nothing like that. Um, but I knew like of at least a few girls in my school that they lost their virginity because a girl or a couple like on TV that they watched in a TV show that was like airing at the time popular because they did. Yeah, like people are that stupid. Oh, okay, Sebastian. And the other, a boy she'd met at orientation the first week of college, who never spoke to her again. Mark was different in bed from either of them. He was uncircumcised, a situation that made her curious, and she never did get to explore the elasticity of his penis skin to her satisfaction. But he was also capital P passionate. That first time they had sex was standing up with her pressed against the wall. It seemed impractical and uncomfortable, but Margot assumed it was part of some fantasy he had. She could not see a reason for having sex against the wall, besides a fantasy, really. When it was over, he sat down in her desk chair and spun around. She went to the bathroom to pee and thus ensure she didn't get a bladder infection. And when she returned, he was going through her desk drawers. "What are you doing?" she asked. "You wander around like that in your underwear," he said, looking up. "They're girls," she said. "Why are you going through my desk?" "Just curious." She would have been upset if there were anything interesting in her drawers. If he wanted to examine her graphing calculator with the cracked screen, he could go ahead. He would never find her secrets. She didn't really have any, or she did, but they were internal somehow, secret even from herself. For instance, she did not like him, not really, and the secret of her disdain was like a folded promise waiting in a drawer within her. "Does your wife know you do this?" she asked. No, he said, and gave himself a little spin in her desk chair. "Yeah, that's probably the fun for it, isn't it for you, asshole? The both of you should feel shame." Where's my bell? Shame! Shame! "But you've done this before? With a student? No. With other women?" He stopped spinning and appeared to be considering his answer. "Yeah, well, then maybe you know the answer, huh, Margot?" He opened one of the weird beers he had brought. He used the edge of her desk to pry off the bottle cap, and she was astonished by the rudeness of this. "I've never told anyone," he said. "What?" she asked, lying down on her bed. aware that even now she was trying to look cute in her underwear. Her hip cocked a bit as she laid back on the pillows. Wait, should I? How do you look cute when you're like, well, I'm not wearing any, but what does she say next, Helen? Well, why? Why? She asked. uh, from the hallway, she could hear one of her roommates throwing up. Probably Kat, the smaller, who was very much a puker. Things entered and exited her with a whimsy Margot could not imagine. I slept with my wife's sister on our wedding night. The fuck? Oh God, Margot, you really picked him. Let's hope Bodie doesn't get like 90% of his genes, all right? Or there's some genes skip generations. Poor Bodie. Right. Where were we? Yeah, fuck that sister too, man. I feel bad for his wife. Could you imagine your sister? Like, could you imagine if like your brother slept with your wife on your wedding night? You know, like that's gotta suck. Okay, where was I? Uh, Margot gasped. Oh my gosh, you're a bad person. He nodded, brow furrowed. I really am. But then you stopped sleeping with her sister? Yeah, I mean, there were a few more times after we got home from our honeymoon, but after that we stopped. Yeah. Did you feel guilty? She asked. It was hard to tell what men felt, she realized. She'd always wondered how her father could be so totally immune to her need for him, how he could pack a bag and be gone when she woke in the morning without saying goodbye. When she was a child, she assumed he was different with his real children, but as she'd gotten older and come to know him better, she understood he was that way with his wife and the kids too. Oh, I see. So her father had her like as like an affair baby, like on the side maybe, or like as a did he have multiple girlfriends and she wasn't like a main? I don't know, but there's something there. There's something there. Because how could you say that you're not his real child if that's your father, you know? But anyway, it was the wrestling life, always getting on a plane. That was where he wanted to be, crammed in a rental car with two men who were both almost 300 pounds, psychotically violent and addicted to painkillers. The regular world had perhaps never been entirely real to him. This is going to sound so fucked up, but not really, he said. I would just pretend I never did it. And since she didn't know I'd done it, it was like I had it. Yeah, I've had some people really think like that. He wrote her poetry, ultimately almost a dozen poems, but she liked this one the most. The Hungry Ghost. So this is a poem that Mark, the shitbag, wrote to Margot. In the dark, we turn to each other like deformed doves, confused that we have bodies. I feel nothing. Keep touching me. I feel nothing. I'm a hungry ghost. We try to eat each other, but it is like trying to run in a dream. The dark, frozen ice of reality splintering around us. Well, I would say don't quit your day job, but you probably should, you freak. Chapter 2. Mark had two kids, a 4-year-old named Haley and a 7-year-old named Max. But he hardly ever spoke of them. He certainly didn't talk about his wife. All he wanted to talk about was poetry and writing and books. He would take me to Barnes and Noble. Have you ever read Jack Gilbert? No? Okay, you must. It's a must. Adding more and more books to the stack. Then he would take me out to dinner. It did not occur to me at the time to wonder how he was affording all this on a junior college professor's salary. He loved, well, maybe his wife's got a higher paying job. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if people get paid. He loves seafood. He was always ordering us things that filled me with mild dread. Charred octopus or mussels that looked for all the world like the clitoris of a corpse stuffed inside a shell. What? And I would choke these things down with the same worried expression as a dog who's been given a carrot. Then he would tell me about a weird dream he had where he was a young girl in Meiji, Japan. My God. But in the end, she ends up, well, I hope, because part of the reason I'm reading this book, it's called Margot Has Money Problems, is because she joins OnlyFans, and because I'm on OnlyFans, and I thought I could relate. I mean, I don't, obviously, like, I don't have any kids or anything, but so part of me wishes like she falls in love with one of her OnlyFans members and like gets the fuck away from this guy. Anyway. Or if not that, maybe the first guy in the class that was just asking questions about the book. Anyway, where were we? Oh, yes, he had a dream that he was a young Japanese girl. Okay. They slept together only 5 times. And then, after the fifth time, Mark explained that the sex was making him feel extremely guilty about his wife and that they should stop. They were in Margot's apartment, still naked in her queen size bed when he said this. I want to keep seeing you, though, he said. Why? She asked. Really, she was still marveling over how he thought sleeping with her would make him feel toward his wife, if not guilty. Well, because I care about you. Please don't cut it off if we aren't screwing. She tilted her head. It hadn't occurred to her that she could cut it off. This whole affair had seemed to be kind of his thing. She'd been letting him drive, but the idea of hanging out with this middle aged man without the sex, like just having an older, dorky friend. Okay, she said. Let me get this straight. So you still want to go out to dinner? Yes, he said. And emails? Of course, we can email. The emails are like the most important part. We can email for the rest of our lives. It seemed obvious to her that they would not. Yeah, I don't think that's gonna happen. He can send you he can send you like, remember those old like chain letters? Do they still do those? Like, if you don't send this to 5 friends, that like I don't have 5 friends. I have to send this to like people that spam me. Then you will die in an hour. Like that shit. All chain text now. Okay. Okay. And then it's all bullshit. You have to like scroll and scroll through with creative use of like text keys, before there was emojis. Anyway. But it really fucks with someone who uses OCD. Okay, where was I? Oh, the emails. But wouldn't your wife mind the love poetry more than the sex? Like, if I were someone's wife and they slept with someone, I could get over it. It's the love stuff that would get to me. Like, you shouldn't be telling me you love me, but I do love you. Margot didn't know what to say. She had a blister on her thumb from grabbing a hot plate at work. Her fault for leaving it there too long, but she'd been triple sat by the new hostess. She kept pressing on the blister and feeling the tightness of the water beneath the skin. She was on the verge of failing French also. She should be studying. I'm not willing to lie about the fact that I love you. If I can't be that honest with myself, then I'm finished. Yes. Oh, wait, no. She said, I'm going to go pee. She said, do you want a glass of water? Yes, please. He said, the covers up to his chin. Then he said in a little old woman voice, I'm so thirsty, Margot. He did this a lot. Pretend to be an old woman. All right, Granny, she said, pulling on some fresh underwear and stumbling out into the hall. I'm starting to think that Mark might be a little Riri. A little Riri. If you catch my drift, I can't say the word. I might get me. It's a scolding, but y'all know what I mean. She figured that most likely he did not mean it, the stopping having sex. That really he would play a game where he said he was going to that he said he wasn't going to sleep with her. Then he'd give in and sleep with her and vocalize his guilt and swear not to do it anymore and so on. That turned out not to be the case. Mark never slept with her again. And he continued to take her out to fancy dinners and write her love poetry and not feel troubled at all. It was incredibly annoying. She was pretty sure she could wear him down eventually, though. See, Margot, you misjudged. Mm. That was the somewhat stable situation in which Margot discovered she was pregnant. She hadn't even realized she was late. One night when she was working, she kept throwing up a little Taco Bell in her mouth and swallowing it. And Tracy, her favorite coworker, was like, maybe you're pregnant. But it seemed so much more probable that her body was rebelling against the Taco Bell. Yet her body kept rebelling against cheesecake after her shift, then against yogurt the next morning. She drank a blue Gatorade, cold, dark blood of the gods, and puked it right back up. This went on for a full 48 hours before she gave in and bought a pregnancy test. They had not used condoms. Oh, girl, girl. What if his wife had that HPVs or whatever? What if you ugh, I get it, Margot's not that bright, but come on, girl. He had always pulled out. He was married, and he said that was how he and his wife did it, and they never had any mistakes. She felt incredibly stupid for believing him, for having the affair with him, for having a uterus. Well, at least you're taking some responsibility. Not for the uterus, but the first thing she did was call her mom, and she wasn't even able to get the words out. She was just sobbing. Are you pregnant? Her mom asked. Yeah, she yelled, cried. Damn it. I'm sorry, Margot said. I'm so sorry. And then her mother took her out for donuts. Margot ate them, and they stayed down. When I first told Mark we were at a restaurant and I'd ordered a salad with fresh figs in it, prompting me to wonder why everyone was pretending to like fresh figs. The vast conspiracy to fake that figs were any good. Anyway, I told Mark I was pregnant and he said, Holy shit. And I said, I know. You're positive. Yeah. I said, Have you been to the doctor? Not yet. So you could just be late. Well, I took like 4 pregnancy tests, so I don't think so, but yeah, I guess. He took a sip of his beer. I'm involuntarily kind of thrilled. My seed is strong. He cried. That's actually funny. Okay, I give one half point to Mark, even though he's Riri. Because Riri's can be funny sometimes. My seed is strong. He cried in some kind of German or Viking accent. I laughed. My hands were sweating profusely. It felt like the whole restaurant was moving, like we were on a boat, the heavy handled silver faintly shifting on the white tablecloths. I'm sorry, he said. I know it's serious. I want to be there to support you in any way possible. Financially, of course. But if you want me to take you to the appointment or any of that, this is my fuck up too, and I'm fully responsible. So, how do I make an appointment? I said. I mean, I would start by calling Planned Parenthood, he said. But like, I don't know if private doctors do it or if it's nicer. Like, I don't want you to have some cheap abortion. I had not realized he'd already decided I would have an abortion, but of course he had. He would decide the same way he decided we would stop sleeping together, though evidently making out in his car was a okay. The same way he decided we would have the affair in the first place. I've never said no to him, not once. We went where he wanted,
when he wanted, ate what he wanted, touched or didn't touch as much as he wanted. And honestly, I think I said it just to fuck with him. Oh, I'm not having an abortion. She's like, meow, meow. He turned green almost instantaneously. Hey, bud, you already have two. What's a third? I know people where I grew up in the projects, they'd be having like five kids easy, maybe even more near Margot, like not Margot's age, she's only 19, but hey, you ever see some of them Mormons? You ever see some of them homesteaders? You need a lot of kids to do the homesteady things. They got to be like picking fruit and putting them in cans and stuff. Anyway, where was I? Oh yeah, she tells him she's not getting an abortion. He turned green. What are you, Catholic? He asked in such a nastier voice than he usually spoke to me in. No, but it's my choice, I said. Don't you think I should get an opinion? He asked. No, I said. I stood and covered my gross fig salad with my napkin and left. When I got outside at the restaurant, I could smell the ocean, and there was this weird moment when I felt like my mom walking haughtily on the sidewalk, like my legs were in these sheer black pantyhose, like I could slip into being someone else entirely. Hey, save those pantyhose for the OnlyFans, girl. The boys like them. Then I tripped on a curb and the feeling was gone. Wait, what? You tripped? And I was merely the idiot who had parked too far away. Girl, be careful. And I really, really wish the next part hadn't happened, but it is true that he ran after me and we wound up making out in his car. And I admitted I would probably have an abortion. I just didn't want to be forced. And he said, I couldn't force you to do a damn thing, Margot. You're wilder than anyone I've ever known. And I like that he called me that, even though the things Mark said about me never felt like they really had anything to do with me. They were more his fantasy of me. But I liked making out in his car, and we left on good terms. Then Mark didn't contact me for 3 days, an unheard of silence. I kept checking my phone, checking my email. I texted, Hey, you okay? I always typed out you with him in deference to his Gen X hangups. And also because he was my English professor, for goodness sakes, he didn't write back. And I knew something bad had happened, that his feelings had shifted. Normally, there was a cord of attachment between us that I could tug and feel him there on the other end. I suddenly had the horrifying sensation that it had just been snipped off, and now I had a cord that led nowhere, that was just dangling in space. Then the email came, long and convoluted, explaining how he felt it was best for us to have no further contact, which was easy enough since the semester was over and I was no longer in his class. He was sorry for anything he put me through, but he felt I was throwing my life away and he couldn't abide it. You could go anywhere, you could do anything, he wrote. Don't throw it all away to have a baby. This one time, Margot, believe me, I am older than you. I have had babies. They are hard. You do not want babies. It was confusing, but he kept trying to frame the decision in terms of what I wanted. To me, want and should were two very separate things. In fact, wanting something was usually a sign that you did not deserve it and would not be getting it. For example, moving to New York City and going to a fancy college like NYU. Conversely, the less you wanted to do something, the more likely it was that you should, like going to the dentist or doing your taxes. More than anything, what I wanted was to make the right decision, and yet no one was willing to engage with me on those terms. Margot's best friend from high school had gotten into NYU and moved to New York, and the pain of this, that Becca was living the life they both had wanted, and Margot was a waitress attending junior college, the unspoken understanding that this was because Becca's parents had money and Margot's mom did not was too intense. And the girls had stopped talking, except now Margot called her and Becca picked up on the first ring. Margot gave her a rough summary of what had happened. So what do you think? Fucking have an abortion, Becca said. But like, Margot could hear sirens and city noise in the background. There is no but like. This isn't a but like situation. This is an emergency. It did not feel like an emergency. Do you believe things happen for a reason? Margot asked. Like, do you believe everything is fated? Or do you believe in free will? Margot, this is not a philosophical question. This is a financial decision. It just feels fucked up to make an important decision based on something as stupid and made up as money. I assure you, money is very real, Becca said. Margot was sitting in her bedroom, looking at the pile of laundry spilling out of her closet, like her clothes were trying to crawl away. I just think, Becca said, maybe being a single mom might not be as glamorous as you think. Now Margot was pissed. Becca, I'm the one who was raised by a single mom, and it's not fucking glamorous. I'm not saying I would keep the baby because it would be fun or easy. I'm saying I think keeping the baby might be like what a good person would do. So having an abortion makes you a bad person? Well, no, Margot said, although on some level, wasn't that kind of what everyone implied? You weren't supposed to get an abortion just because it was more convenient. You were supposed to be all cut up about it. So, tell me how keeping the baby would make you a good person again. I don't know. I'm not saying it would. Margot raked her scalp with her nails. You literally said you were thinking about keeping the baby because you thought it's what a good person would do. Then maybe I didn't mean that. And since when do you care about being a good person? I mean, you're fucking somebody's husband. I know, Margot said, but she didn't. She'd always known Mark was a terrible person, but she had not quite registered that she was terrible too until this very moment. Just, oh, what am I even doing with my life? Going to junior college, pretending I'm going to transfer. Do you even understand how impossible it is to get into a UC anymore? And even if I did, I would major in what? English? You can't get a job with an English degree. And I can't even think of anything else I could study. So then what do I do? Like waitress? Get a job at Bloomingdale's like my mom? None of it made any sense. At least this would be something. Or none of it makes any sense. At least this would be something. There's lots of cool things you could do, Margot. You could get into viticulture and go into wine or something. Margot instantly thought of the wine rep her restaurant dealt with, who was so corny and pretentious and had a huge tattoo of grapes on her chest, like right on her décolletage. Massive, ugly, purple cartoon grapes. Bitch is better than a Kermit. Viniculture. It might be a misspelling, but it does say, let me go back. Let me make sure. Yeah, Vitic. I didn't read it wrong, but it could be written wrong because viniculture sounds right. Okay, where was I? Oh yeah, grapes on her chest. I'm saying it's a big deal, Margot said. Like, don't you think I should at least think about it? Why are you trying to make it not a big deal? I'm sorry, Becca said. I don't know why I'm being such a bitch. It is a big deal. It's a super big deal. This is this was not satisfying. Let me have a sip of my water. Mm. Can someone Google viticulture? I'm curious. Anyway, or viti viti culture. Anyway, it's a super big deal. This was not satisfying, and Margot didn't know exactly why. How's school? She asked, and they talked about that for a little while. When they hung up, Margot cried for 20 minutes and then went to work. Meanwhile, time was still happening, and somehow it was Tuesday. I don't know, maybe she thought it'll give her life meaning, or by taking care and nurturing something, that is being a good person, but it's not the act of abortion or not or whatever, like in and of itself. It's kind of like to me, nurturing in like my dogs or things like that. That is an act of goodness. I'm trying to think, what is she thinking? It has to do with growing grapes and wine. So it is a word? Sorry. My phone is preoccupied with you guys, so I can't look it up right now, but I'll look it up. Okay. Make another sip. Oh, yes, it is a word. Oh, we're learning new words every day. Word of the day. Meanwhile, time was still happening. And somehow it was Tuesday, and she was going to her first doctor's appointment. She'd originally called Planned Parenthood. They wouldn't do an ultrasound to confirm pregnancy until you were 8 weeks along, though. Pregnancy math was cruel. The moment you found out you were pregnant, you were already at 4 weeks. Waiting 4 more weeks to see if she was pregnant or not seemed absurd. So she called around until she found an OBGYN who was willing to see her at 6 weeks. It was exactly like every other time she'd been to the doctor. She wasn't sure why that was surprising. Maybe she thought they'd be nicer to her. The doctor was a chubby, middle aged white guy with a shaved bald head. So, you don't know the date of your last period? No, I didn't keep records. Okie dokie, don't worry. We'll get all this squared away. He seemed like the kind of man who was a great husband, but whose wife would cheat on him anyway. Oh, that's so sad. I'm gonna leave the room. The nurse will bring you a gown. Change into that. No underwear. Margot nodded. This is a transvaginal Doppler, he said. Ever had one of those before? Nope. Well, when the fetus is this size, you can't see well enough through the belly, so you have to take a peek internally. Margot looked over at the futuristic dildo attached to the sonogram machine. She got the idea. She had not pictured it being like this at all. After the doctor stepped out of the room, while she was changing into the gown the nurse had brought her, she silently thanked God that Mark hadn't come to spectate such a thing. It would be weird enough if her mom came, but Cheyenne was working. And then it was time for her to get fucked by a robot to meet her unborn child. Okay, the doctor said. Now the gel is heated. So this shouldn't be too bad. He began to insert the giant dildo. It didn't hurt. It was just weird as hell. Not medical term for what? Vaginal robot? He was really digging around in there, trying to see something, perhaps in her spinal column. Okay, he said, turning a knob on the machine, and suddenly there was sound. A quiet, fast whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. That's the heartbeat. Is it? It sounded like a mechanical toy. She didn't know why she was crying. It was completely underwhelming as a sound. He kept digging the wand around, taking pictures, clicking the mouse of the computer with his other hand. It was really quite impressive, his ambidextrousness. I'm taking measurements so we can get some idea of the age of the fetus. She noticed he had avoided using the word baby. She thought that was kind of him, and it made her start crying again. Pregnancy hormones, I bet. Okay, he said. So I would say, based on measurements, and these are pretty accurate, especially this early, that you're about 8 weeks. It wasn't that this wasn't possible, only that Margot wasn't prepared. 8 weeks pregnant sounded awfully pregnant. He removed the wand and peeled off the plastic condom thing. Then he pressed a button on the machine and a printer started. Oh, I should have asked, do you want copies of the pictures? Yes, she said, though saying it made her cough because she was crying so hard while trying to be relatively silent. Do you know what you want to do about the pregnancy? No, she said and closed her eyes. I'm going to let you get cleaned up and then we can talk more about your options, he said. When he was out of the room, she looked at the pictures, which were still dangling out of the machine on their shiny, thin strip of paper. And there he was, her baby, looking for all the world like a tiny, deformed dove. Chapter 3. After the doctor's appointment, I drove to my mother's apartment. Hey, Noodle, my mom said. I'm 8 weeks pregnant, it turns out, I said, flopping down on the couch. My mother looked down on me for a long time. You want to keep this baby, don't you? She said. I don't know, I said. She went into the kitchen. I heard the crack and hiss as she opened a beer. She came back into the room. I like your nails, I said. They were new, a kind of radioactive looking yellow. If you keep this baby, she said, I'm not taking care of it. It would be your baby. I know, I said, genuinely baffled. I would never give the baby to my mother. God damn it, she said, pacing back and forth in front of the TV with her beer. Mom, it's okay, I said. I'll figure it out. I thought I did so good. You were in college. You were going to be somebody. Who was I going to be? I asked. I had a sudden image of my mother pressing her idea of who I was onto the actual me, like an acrylic nail, this big mask shell of a face on top of my actual face. You know what I mean. You were going to have a career and like do things. What things? I don't know, Cheyenne said. Whatever you wanted. I stayed silent. Mark, Becca, my mom, they kept insisting I had all these options, and I could never figure out what those options were supposed to be. In high school, I met with my guidance counselor, Mr. Ritchie, exactly 2 times. The first time he told me I could apply for scholarships and financial aid and gave me all these forms to fill out. The second time, he seemed to have no memory of me and said my only hope was transferring to a UC. I'd enrolled in Fullerton College, except the whole first year I hadn't been able to get into a single class I needed for transfer credit. They all filled up almost instantly. So I'd done a whole year of basically fluff humanities credits that would never transfer anywhere. Everyone kept telling me I would lose so much by having this baby, but it didn't feel like I'd be losing anything at all. I'm dreading telling Kenny, Cheyenne said, resuming her pacing. Why on earth would you dread telling Kenny? He's religious, she hissed. There was something very velociraptor about the way she was stalking back and forth. So, wouldn't he be glad I didn't get an abortion? No, he'd be appalled you've been whoring it up in the first place. Teen mom, I mean, Margot, we would never tell him if you had an abortion. I have to be honest, Mom, I cannot bring myself to care about what Kenny thinks of me. Plus, I'd be 20 by the time the baby's born. he could wind up being your stepdad. I found this unlikely, though it seemed mean to say so. You see, oh yeah, the California university system. They're all over UC Fullerton. There's a UC Riverside over out here. It's for the state, because it's a big state, so there it's in different parts. Oh yes. Kenny is great, she said. Kenny is amazing. Okay, I said. Yes. It will be fine, she said. I'll just kind of imply that Mark took advantage of you. It wasn't really your fault. I did not intend to leap to my feet, but I did. And then I didn't know what to do when I got there. Mark did not take advantage of me, I said. It wasn't like that. Of course, you think that. You wouldn't have done it if you felt he was taking advantage, but he's a grown man, honey. There's things you won't understand about till you're older. I was so mad that the bottoms of my feet ached, and I also really had to pee. So I went to use the restroom. My mom had this big poster of the Eiffel Tower in her bathroom and a little French soaps. The whole room was Paris themed. I was thinking how stupid it looked and how annoying she was as I washed my hands with the little soap, rough and spastic, like I was peeling potatoes. And then I realized she probably desperately wanted to go to Paris and she probably never would. I looked in the mirror and could suddenly see how I looked just like her, a knockoff Cheyenne. My eyes set a little too wide. Both of us had stupid faces, pretty and sweet, faces that seemed to imply there was nothing inside us at all. When I got back to the living room, she was sort of draped on the couch in a sitting position, like someone had let the air out of her. I lay down on my head. I laid down so my head was in her lap. When I got pregnant with you, she said, idly stroking my hair, I was so scared. Why did you keep me? I asked. It had never really made sense. It was a one night stand. Damn, you ladies of that family are fertile. It was a one night stand. She hardly knew my father. They met at the Hooters where she worked. She didn't even know his real name, only his ring name, Jinx, because in his first match, his opponent dropped dead before he even touched him. I didn't know he was already married, she said. He didn't wear a ring. None of them did. You could lose a finger. But I didn't know that then. It was really intense between us. And I thought maybe, I don't know, maybe, it felt like my destiny. Like he was the one. The tenderness of her hope and the obviousness of her naivete were too much. I rushed to move on. What was dad even like back then? He's so serious now, it's hard for me to picture. Even the idea of him being drunk. Oh, believe me, your daddy could drink with the best of them. I don't know. He had those dark eyes that kind of sparkled. And he was on so many steroids. His traps were huge, and he didn't tan. He was so pale and big. He looked like a milk white bull. Mom, I was asking about his personality. I was getting to it. He was a gentleman, probably from being Canadian. He was always kind, but he was a heel in the ring, so you didn't expect it. He was a listener. He liked sitting back and letting other people talk. I can see that, I said. I never knew my father as a wrestler. By the time I was making memories, he'd already herniated 2 discs in Japan and started managing Murder and Mayhem. He managed them in the everyday sense of booking their matches. They were rare or free agents amid the Monday Night Wars, but he also played the character of their manager on TV because Murder and Mayhem weren't great talkers, and Jinx was a genius at promos. I assume he stopped using steroids after he got hurt because he lost a lot of weight. And the older he got, the skinnier he seemed to become. With the largeness of his frame and his almost skeletal thinness and shaved head, he'd begun to resemble a hairless cat. How did you tell him? I'd spent surprisingly little time imagining all this. Well, one night they come into the restaurant drunk off their asses about 1 in the morning. And after my shift, he took me to his hotel room and I told him he was really happy. He was really happy about it. It was weird. He couldn't stop smiling and touching my tummy. He told me then that he was married, and that kind of broke my heart. I was crying, and he said, I'm really glad I met you. And I realized I was glad I met him too. So we just made do with what we had. When he was in town, we'd see each other. I knew he had to save the big money for his wife and them. I always knew that, but he really did come through when he could. I believe that. I don't think you should count on Mark being the same. And probably a lot of people would say I was dumb for doing that, but I always loved him. This I had known. It was obvious, horribly so. Whenever he came to town, she doted on him, constantly offering to make him a sandwich, get him a glass of water. It was a steel cage match for his attention, and I always lost. The few times I'd won, when Jinx had shown that laser beam of love on me, were painful in a different way. One year, he was in town for my birthday and took me to a steakhouse. I was 13 and absolutely did not like steak, but he took me out for this fancy dinner. And when I got home, Cheyenne wasn't even mean about it. She was crushed. He stayed in a hotel that trip instead of our house. He sometimes did that, and I never knew exactly why or what it meant. You chose to keep me, I said. I could hear the faint ticking of the carbonation in her beer. I did, but there were other times later when I chose different. I was silent. I had not known that. It made sense, though. Do you think things happen for a reason? I asked. I don't know, she said, but I think you're just scared to admit you don't want to wreck your life. You think it will wreck my life? I asked. She stroked my hair. Yes, Noodle, it will ruin your life for sure. But sometimes ruining your life is the only thing you want. I knew what she was talking about, deciding to keep me when she was pregnant, about the gray area she and Jinx had spent their whole lives in, the bitter sweetness of making do with another woman's husband, the way I would scream and chatter when he came in the door, begging him to supplex me before he'd even set down his bag, and her coming out from the kitchen, wiping wiping her hands on a dish towel, having tried to cook some weird retro dish, tuna casserole with raisins in it, meatloaf covered in ketchup. She would snap at me and tell me to give him some space, offer him a beer as I clamored to tell him about school. And when he'd leave again in a few days, the apartment would be so quiet and we wouldn't know how to talk to each other exactly, like we were embarrassed of ourselves and how we had behaved. I ruined your life, I said. Not a question. I just wanted her to know that I knew. You ruined my life so pretty, Noodle. I didn't say anything. I only lay there on the couch with my head in her lap. She petted my hair, scritched my scalp with her acrylic nails. But there had also been the two of us laughing and eating popcorn, her loopy handwriting on notes she left on my school lunches that she pretended were written by the cat, our arms moving in perfect synchrony to fold a fitted sheet. The day we drove all the way to the Grand Canyon, a solid 8 hours, and just looked at it, bought some Sour Patch Kids, and drove all the way home so I could go to school the next day. If Cheyenne hadn't had me, what would she have had? I scheduled an abortion, I told her. She didn't say anything, but I don't think I can go. Like, I can't picture myself going. Well, she said, you'll have to wait until it's time and then figure out if you want to go or not. Okay, I said, trying not to show how thrilled I was that she backed off the idea of me definitely going through with it. Like I was lying to stay home sick. I called and canceled the abortion the moment I left her house that day. I couldn't tell you why it was a bad idea. I did not have a good reason, and it wasn't because I wanted to be a good person, not really. It wasn't because I was in love with Mark. I just wanted that baby. I wanted it more than I'd ever wanted anything. I cut out the best of the ultrasound pictures and kept it on my bedside table. I would spend hours staring at it. It was such an inadequate, ugly image, so frustrating in its refusal to give me anything to hold on to, any way of envisioning who the baby would be. My body was making something in secret, and I was reduced to spying on my internal organs with these grainy black and white photos, but I hung on faithful, waiting. Okay, I think we'll leave it there. We're still on chapter 2. Um, uh-oh. Mhm. What did you think of that? Should I get you a little higher, maybe? Okay, so I'm so happy to see you, Terry. You have no idea. Um, I'm so sorry about the day you had and what you're going through. But you've been in my thoughts. Okay, so we didn't get to her the get opening the OnlyFans yet, obviously, like, um, but we got a little bit of backstory. Sorry, my hair from um just shower. Anyway, a little backstory about the father, and I think that's gonna be really fun because I in the little dust jacket, when you look at like what a book is about, the little bit here. Um, I'm sorry, this is the author. I'm gonna show you the cover again. She looks like an older Margot, doesn't she? Like a little bit, maybe the same age. I can't totally tell. Maybe I think of her as older because she wrote a book. But this is like on the cover. I think this is supposed to be Margot, and Margot's got money trouble with the short blonde. Reminds me of Blondie with the short blonde hair. Anyway, but anyway, in the little synopsis thing, or not synopsis, because a little a little intrigue into what the book will be about. I think her father I think he's gonna move in with her or something. I think he's gonna become a more key player in her life. And also, the book is meant to be humorous. It's not supposed to just be like downer. Like like there's a humor to it too, like a funness of following her story and everything of this girl. And I think we probably will probably grow to love her former pro wrestler father. But so I like that the book is setting it up for you that way, that you see how was she was a Hooters waitress, her mother. They had this one night stand, which turned into more obviously after she gets pregnant. But he's kind of sees Margot and the mom when she's in town, and the mom makes him meatloaf and makes him little things, and it's like they're this pseudo family, but like poor Margot doesn't really get a dad. That's not, and he must know. I'm sure he knew that that's like
So he takes her when she's 13 out and is realizing. So I think maybe they're going to get a chance to reconnect and help her out, you know? See, so, but that gives you a little more understanding into why she's hasn't had that much in her upbringing guidance. She's had the mom, it's a little flaky. I mean, she worked at the Bloomingdale's and she got her pantyhose and she knows some things, but she's got this boyfriend, which maybe a nice guy, you know, but she doesn't seem to have had a lot of um worldliness and I think so she's made some poor decisions, obviously, and um let's see where this story goes. I think it's going to be fun. Maybe the author is Margot. Well, she wrote some other books before this. I believe I think it says here. I'm not totally sure. Oh, here we go. The Knockout Queen, Dear Fang with Love, and The Girls from Corona del Mar. So, but I don't know how did I happen to, oh, I know how I happened to hear of this. It was on someone's page for a lot more money. Um, that I was looking at the time, probably pantyhose or something that I didn't buy, but I saw this book and I was like, "Oh, I bet that'd be fun." But with the cost plus the shipping, so I added it to my wish list, and John got it for me around Christmas, and so because I thought this I think this will be fun, and I do hope that um as we get into it, I do hope that you enjoy it too. Um, I don't know what I'm gonna do about that drive. As I understand it, which means I may be wrong, but the best I can understand is that if they don't lower the price substantially in a negotiation, then I can ask for it back. This is as I understand it. So I'm like 50-50 on that, right? But if that's it, and then my hope is if I get it back, then in the future, one day if I want it, then I could get it done. But right now, I don't want to for that price. Um, or anywhere close to that price. And I feel embarrassed because, and also like a lot of emotions, but also it's like, oh, thank you, Jerry, with your flying bird. It reminds me of a wrestling character. Um, listen, I'm trying to wonder, like, I'm trying to remember what is on that drive. Maybe I should have labeled it at some point or known, but to me, all these drives look the same. And anyway, it's not emergency. What's emergency is something that was going on with Terry today. And I'm not trying to take away from that by caring about this issue with myself. It's a matter of it's upsetting, like more things to worry about that makes my mind frazzle. Um, maybe that's the thing with reading. As long as I could just focus on her or something, like I can, because there's so many things that are connected. The drive and where it is and the price and what's on it, and so this would have been a several years ago, and it wouldn't have been, I don't think, videos. Um, anyway, in the meantime, I got a TV if I can find the ability to set it up. I'd love to have a TV set up and a picture taken. Thank you, John. uh, And, it's supposed to be not really glary during the day too. It's supposed to be so much nicer than the other one that broke, so, but first I should eat something because I really haven't eaten much today. I had a protein shake, a little drink, and a yogurt so I could take my vitamins. But that's all, so anyway, we'll be back with this book on Sunday because we got call in tomorrow with some great games. I got a lot of games today, and, wanna share those with you. Um, and then date night Saturday. And then Sunday we'll be back reading. And I think that because you guys should be doing a lot of talking when you call me tomorrow. And then date night isn't as much reading. And hopefully if I can stop this constant crying that I've been doing every single day since Christmas, my voice will be more myself, stronger on Sunday because I really would love to have a nice Sunday chill read with you. So that is the plan. I love you more than you could ever know. You keep me alive. You give me my strength. You make me happy when I wake up. When happiness is very hard to come by. Not happy like life is all great, but enough where it's like, get out of bed, you got something to live for. So, anyway, give me a call tomorrow. Stay warm, stay cozy. I love you.